Today on What Went Wrong, we're joined by the next generation. Hi, I'm Brett Mauser, and I've made over 40 feature films, and we are now here with a first-time feature film director. Have you directed films before?
Just short films.
Short films, but yeah, that counts. So KeeKee Suki, give us a little introduction to yourself. And
when I was in high school, Kerry Tokugawa came to our school and talked to our class, in our Japanese class. And anybody that doesn't know who he is, he was Shang Tsung in Mortal Kombat. He's been in Pearl Harbor. He's been in numerous movies. Amazing actor. But we became friends, and he literally was my inspiration to become an actor. So just having knowledge of video, film editing, and things like that from high school, when I started acting more, by your own camera, kind of play around a little bit, started writing, did a 5-page short, and it kind of led me to where I'm at right now with Darkness, because I just kept writing and kept writing and kept writing. But yeah, it's been a great journey. First and foremost, I'm an actor over a filmmaker, but that's just because I love the craft of acting and being able to put on, those different costumes pretty much.
That will probably change as you get more and more involved and more passionate about the projects. Because that's kind of what happened to me. Was I started off as an actor, and I was like, well, no one's going to put me in their film, so I'll just put myself in my own films. And as you become more passionate about the films, you want more control, and you realize that you're the one with the vision, and you need to have as much control as you can. So I can only imagine what people like Mel Gibson go through when they're doing something like Braveheart, where they're trying to do both jobs. How did making shorts springboard you into a feature? When you were doing the shorts, did you always have features in the back of your mind, and that this was practice, or did just doing the short films spur you on to do a feature?
So literally, Darkness, my film my first feature that I produced, literally started off as a 5-page short. And when I edited it, put it together, I was just like, it's not enough. And then I was like, you know what, let's turn this into a series. So I started writing it into a series. So broke it down into a 5-part series and started editing it, putting it together, and saying, oh, this is actually going to be better as a feature. So then I just kept writing and put together that into a feature, and now it's actually turned into, it's going to be a 4-film pulp fiction anthology style of film. So
that really brings to the forefront how projects can sometimes breathe on their own. They take a life of their own, and the project or the idea guides the director sometimes instead of the director the other.
And I think also one of the biggest things that I encountered through this journey is, and what's pushed me and gave me this momentum to keep writing and keep building upon this actual universe, as you would call it, is all the talented people around you. And you see these actors after you write this role, and they're just destroying this role, and it's just like, wow, I'm so inspired now.
It does. It's a mutually beneficial feeding off of each other. Yeah.
So that was kind of like the guide to where I'm at now and where I'm definitely going in the next, probably, I would say, 3 to 4 years of getting these films done.
So what is your eventual goal?
My dream would be to be able to have Dragon's Eye Media, a full-scale production company, running itself, and then still me being an actor and not just working with Dragon's Eye Media, but working with other people as well. So
tell me a little bit about the Darkness. Is it The Darkness or just Darkness?
It's Darkness 2021.
Okay.
Darkness 2021, the backstory of it is of Irene Brackenridge in Brackenridge Park. So when she was 1800s, she was a landholder, and very wealthy landholder, and she was an avid gambler. One night, she had won the first Battle of Flowers Parade ribbon. So she was an avid gambler. She went gambling that night and won $1,000. Just going home, well, somebody abducted her and killed her and chopped her up in a bunch of little pieces and burned her in her own house in a suitcase. So I took that story and built upon that story, and took that true story part of it and the history of Brackenridge Park, and just kind of like facilitated the film. So in the first opening chapter of Darkness, the audience is going to see basically as if it is just a vampire film, but as it grows, the story will explain a lot more. So I don't want to give away too much.
Oh yeah, definitely don't do that. What were some of the major stumbling blocks that you encountered through this?
The first, I would say the first one was not having enough help on set. And, you know, we start off as a two-man crew. Mm-hmm. So, like, you're going into this and not understanding. And I would say, honestly, about the, you know, secondary point of it was really realizing how uneducated I was about filmmaking. Because the lack of knowledge of what needs to be shot, the lighting conditions, the elements and the time frames, the sound especially, you know, all these different elements that when you jump into this, you're like, oh yeah, I can do this. And then you start doing it and playing it back, you're like, oh man, I got to go reshoot that. So yeah, you know, it's such a learning curve. And I don't think that, I think even if I went to film school, everything in life I've been to, you know, I've had a cosmetology degree, I have a degree in exercise science, and even with those degrees, on the field, trial and error, you still learn. Mm-hmm. You're still learning. So, I mean, I honestly feel that I've been blessed to have so many talented filmmakers around me, so many friends that are in the film industry to kind of get tidbits from and help from, that's helped me grow as a filmmaker without having to go through the basic fundamentals of education behind it. So.
That's something that I'll admit as a professor is that there'll be times when I'm teaching students and I'll be saying, okay, don't do this because this will happen. And if you do this, this is going to happen. Oh, what do you know? And then they go and they do it and they come back 2 weeks later. I should have listened to you. And you need, and I'd rather they do that than just kind of, I don't want them to take what I have to say with blind faith. Go out there and experience it yourself. And that's one of the reasons we say don't spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on your first movie, because you won't know what you're doing with all that money. Absolutely. So you keep the budget small, you keep it manageable, and it's almost like going to a roulette wheel. You don't want to go to the roulette wheel with more money than you're willing to lose. And that's sort of the same way with film is because you're getting more education with whatever your budget may be than putting it into necessarily how to hold a reflector or how to set up a light. Absolutely. Because you can learn all this science or technology in a class, but until you practically attempt it, you're not going to be able to make the connection in your head. You can say, okay, well, this light temperature does this, but until you see it practically, it doesn't sink in.
Yeah.
You mentioned not having a lot of help. That's something that we do, you know, that we've been dealing with forever on our sets. Yeah. What do you think is one of the things that when you and your plus one, plus two people, how do you divide up the duties? How do you put? I think the main question is how do you prioritize the tasks? Because, you know, from sound to lighting to camera, not everybody can do everything. So how do you prioritize those tasks when you step on set?
Wear as many hats as possible. No, I mean, reality of it is you can only do what you can do when you're in the moment, because the moment constantly changes. And yeah, like maybe somebody's better at this job than the next, but then, you know, the actor might need something from, you know, their car in the middle of the shooting, and that person has to run off set, and now the whole film day is changed completely over somebody that has asthma. You know, like, I honestly just try to, when I go in for the shoot, I mentally have everything organized on what needs to be done. And as a director, like, I'm not only trying to pay attention to making sure my actors are in their characters and delivering their lines, but to me, that's almost the least important part of me being on task, of being able to make sure the camera's in the right position, the lights are moved in the right position before I even start the camera and start shooting, and making sure that once I'm like, it's go, 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 now it's just hitting the right shots. Mm-hmm. And then it kind of flows a little bit easier that way, and I don't have to really worry about too much of the tidbits of things, you know?
Yeah.
Like, oh, we'll make sure the boom's over here and turned in the right direction. Is it turned on? And, you know, the minute things, you know? As long as I got the basic fundamentals where it needs to be, everything kind of depends on, again, there's certain elements that you can't account for rain, you can't account for wind, but there's certain things that you can control, especially if you, as a director and as your own kind of AD mentally, is making sure that your mind knows where you're going in each direction. So you're on top of your own tasks. Because if you get scatterbrained, it's, you know how it is, it's just like, darn, I forgot this at home, you know.
You had brought up actors being able to do what they're doing. I think that's something that an important aspect to stress about how much we rely on actors, yes. Because we are such small. We have such small crews. We rely on the actors so much more to know their lines, to understand their characters, so we can try to get that out done. You know, have those meetings with the actors to help them with their characters before we get on set, because when we get on the set, we hit the ground running, yes, and we rely on them so much.
And I honestly try to, even within that checklist, I try to count the time. So like time management is another huge fundamental part of filming, and not trying to go overboard. A lot of times, like, oh, I want to do, you know, I got 6 scenes and you know, like, I'm breaking down these 6 scenes to 8 different shots, 9 different shots, and it's just like, well, that's not doable. Mm-hmm. You know, so I'll break that down a little bit smaller, and so that when I get there with my actors, I'm letting them rehearse prior to. Yeah. Letting them get in the vibe, getting the movements, like, go through your movements, let's, you know, work it together, let me hear it. And I can sit back and kind of judge and be like, oh, okay, I like that, well, let's try this. And then, oh, I didn't even think of that, you know, and then the light bulb starts going off for them, and they start getting more into their character. So I think that little extra time to allow for like the kind of vibing between the characters, and that's why it's so important to get a good cast.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel that your background as an actor helps you as a director?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when it comes to working with the other actors on set and getting them to pull out their best. But again, at the same token, being small time, right, we are our own casting directors. So we're constantly seeking out those different talents. So, like, I feel like that is huge. So, like, you're saying, okay, I seeing you act in this movie, and, like, I have this role that it just fits so perfect for. And just being able to line those stars up, you know, that's what makes the kind of grandness of producing a feature film, and producing a film, period, whether if it's a short film or a large film, seeing that material come alive.
Any moments on the set that jump out in your mind as major lesson learners? You know?
So, for those that are watching, Yorktown Memorial Hospital is deemed one of the most haunted places in Texas. And I went out there, and I shot in the mortuary area. We reviewed the footage on set, took it home, we reviewed it again. 2 days later, the footage disappeared off the camera. And not all of it, only in the mortuary scene. So that was a very interesting situation. So I literally had to rent the space again and go back there and shoot. So I was like, okay, 3 cameras. Let's see if footage gets erased this time. So before the rest of the cast got there, I had my drone out and I was shooting in front of the hospital, trying to get a little bit of footage. Put that away, didn't even think about it. Got through, shot those scenes, was able to retain that footage, went home to look at the drone footage, oh, that vanished off the camera. So there's something I would have to say extremely paranormal there about somehow that footage being taken off or manipulated or whatever, because I literally had it happen to me twice.
See, that makes me want to. That kind of makes me want to go make a movie there just to like debunk it or something.
Yeah.
But I've seen enough horror movies to know that the skeptic always gets beheaded somewhere. So I'm going to steer clear of that. So, last question: how do you see yourself before you started Darkness 2021 and after?
I think before I started Darkness, I think I didn't appreciate a director's point of view as much as I did when I finished the project. Once I was done, you know, pulling my hair out, so to speak, and feeling the pressure of getting the right shot, making sure that every scene was cool enough that you could put together the story and get the timeline together, really made you appreciate the fact that when a director is just sitting down writing that script, getting all those little bitty details in, and as an actor, sometimes you'll read just your scene and not really worry about what else is happening on the film, because that's not what you're in. And I really learned as an actor that every single scene is important in the script, and it will help you bring out a bigger character in yourself if you take the time to read everything and soak in the whole script versus just reading your section and understanding what your supposed role is, because there's details inside of the script that as an actor that you just might miss that could lead you to a bigger characterism of who your character could be. And then just as a director, the respect that I've obtained for other directors, especially big films, and coming up with the front to back storyline, getting everybody where they needed to be as far as with actors and actresses, and getting that end product together.
Tell us where we will be able to find Darkness 21 or 2021 or any of your short films that you may have out.
Right around January 2022, we should be able to release that through Burning Bulb Entertainment. Look for Dragon's Eye Media, which will be presenting 3 more films, which will be the kind of the bow and the ribbon on the top of Darkness, so that you understand the whole collaborative story, because it's going to be an anthology of 4 films total. And then if you go on YouTube, you can go on Cherokee Takatsuki on YouTube, and I have Badman Orange, and I have a couple other small short films on there as well if you want to check those out.